Hello everyone, this is Betsy from Ideas Times 2, and today I have a tutorial. I'm going to be making a lapbook, and in the interest of using up what I have, I found two great book covers that I will use. I've already gutted them, and this green kind of caught my eye because it matches the paper I'll be using. But it worked out just perfectly, so I'm excited to use up a couple things that I had in my stash. And also this project is inspired by this paper pad, and also this video is an application to be brand ambassador for Graphic 45. So this is the project I chose and the paper I chose to use for this Lapbook project. So this is called Voyage Beneath the Sea, and of course it's Graphic 45. It's stunning. So I will just quickly go through the pages, and I'm going to scoot this over so that you can see the back of the papers too, because they're double-sided. But so it's like a steampunk ocean theme, and the colors of course are amazing. We have like a turquoise, green, and rust and orange. Just gorgeous. So lots of steampunk going on this page for sure. So I'm just going to run through the papers so you can see them. This will be one of those, Cindy mentioned this in a video she had just the other day, that it's so hard to use double-sided paper because both sides, you want to use both sides, but you can't because they're so pretty. There's this one, there's the back of that, and some journal cards on this sheet, and there's the back of that one. So, of course, I'll be adding other things in with this, but that is the inspiration. And I did find a book cover that matches the green exactly, so I was excited about that. I'm going to have to make the spine bigger because the way this is going to work, this will be the main cover, and then one of these covers will be attached on like this. The other cover will be attached just like this. I have to cut those apart, and then it'll open like that. And we're going to be putting all kinds of pockets and tucks and a junk journal and all kinds of things. So because it's going to be crammed with stuff, this spine has to be a lot bigger because this is the main cover for the journal. So this will have to be cut apart, and this is just a tiny little spine, so I'm going to increase it to 2 1/4 inches, so to give myself lots of room. But before I even get that far, I'm going to have to obviously do something with this cover. I think this cover can pretty much stay the same. I will be decorating it because it's the front cover and we want it to be special. But I do have to paint this. So I have quite a few acrylic paints, and I found a green that, I don't know if you can see that, but it is pretty spot on. So I brought out different colors so I could mix colors, and then it turns out that this color was perfect. So I'm very excited about that. So I'm going to move these out of the way. I'm not going to make you watch me do all of this, but I will kind of go through the process of cutting off the spines, just in case you've never done that. And then I'll probably paint it off camera so you don't have to, don't have to watch it all. But I will come back, and this will need a new spine, and then the cover, the green one here, will need a new spine. So I will go over that with you, but for now I'm going to cut. I'll show you how I do it. It doesn't matter, you could use scissors. I've got a rotary cutter and a straight edge, and I just cut that right down the line, except I didn't put a lot of pressure right there. There we go. So that's it. So I'll be using this piece, and I'm going to do the same thing for this one. There we go. And this can be discarded, or if you can think of a way to use that, you can definitely use that. If you try to, you know, follow this. Okay, so now we've got our covers. I'm going to remove that as well. But before I leave, I wanted to let you know how I'm going to paint these. The first thing I'm going to do is apply a gesso. I have, this one is almost gone. It's a white gesso. This one will be clear. And I don't think I have enough of this to cover both of these covers. But gesso is just a binder, so it'll help your paint stick to the cover, especially if it's got a little bit of a glossy surface. And I think what I'm going to go ahead and do too is just run sandpaper over this, just lightly, and then make sure all the sanding dust is off of it. Then I will gesso it, and then I will go over it with my green paint that I found. I put a little dab right there. And so I'm going to go ahead and paint this, and I think I'm going to wrap around to the inside cover here too. And then I won't be using this paper. I'll be using a graphic 45 paper, but so I'm going to wrap around on the back side of the cover as well. So I'm going to do those things. Dismantle my my spine here, and then paint this, and I will be back. Hi, I'm back, and I've painted my covers. This was the bird book. I painted it that pretty green color. I did 2 coats on the outside edge, on the inside center. I mean, just coated it with 1 coat, and wasn't really careful because that's going to be covered up with paper, so I wasn't too worried about it. So the edges are all done, and then as you can see, I wrapped the green around the outside 3 edges. This will be the spine edge, so this will be covered with a reinforcement, either paper or fabric or something. So that part we're not worried about. That's the raw edge that we cut. Okay, but the inside cover there is trimmed with green so that we have a nice green border. All right, so those are all done. Now comes the fun part. This cover is the one that did not need painting. So we're going to put this together with our larger spine. And the way I'm going to put it together is with the spine will be this it's not cardstock, it's chipboard, and it's medium weight chipboard. I just glued 2 pieces together to make a nice thick chipboard. So I cut that the height of the book, and then it is 2 1/4 inches wide, which is quite a bit wider than the spine was earlier. So that's going to be our new spine, but it has to be decorative. So I painted canvas, and if you can see this, I put like a few bubbles. Since we have sort of a sea theme going here, I put bubbles and sort of modeled paint splotches and stuff on this to make the spine kind of interesting, I guess. And very simple process. Just cut a piece of canvas about 1 1/8 wider on each side than your spine, and then about 1 inch or a little bit longer, if you'd like, longer than the height of your spine. That is so that we can wrap, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So it's canvas, painted it that same green color, and then just added a few things. And the way I did this is just acrylic paints in little circles. So I had a paint lid, a little tube of paint, and I dipped it in acrylic paint and just dabbed a few bubbles here and there, and the same with the rust color there. And then the paint splotches, I just had a bottle of ink spray. So while this was all still wet, I just did my ink spray, and then it soaked right in to the paint and just sort of gave it a splotchy effect. So that's all I did with that. Real simple. All right, so what I'm going to do is, this will be the outside. So I'm going to put this down on my surface and center this spine piece, and then I'll be gluing, leaving a gap. I'm going to glue the cover to the fabric, the back cover, and the front cover to the fabric. And then you do have to leave a gap so that you have room to fold. So that's all I'm going to be doing. But since this will show on the outside edge and it has raw edges, which I don't mind at all, but I thought it would be kind of fun. And I'm not sure how much of this is actually going to show because I'm doing a collage of sorts on the front. But what I thought would be fun is if it does show, or even just the little bits that do show, I wanted to have sort of a wavy edge. So I have this rotary cutter that has a wavy pattern on it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this on each side with my wave. Real simple, straight edge, and then cut. Didn't quite get a few spots, so let me, actually I don't need my straight edge. I'm just going to go ahead and line it up with my waves. There we go. Okay, so wave on that side, and now we're going to flip it around and do the same thing here. Just catching the edge. I'm pressing a little bit harder this time, so hopefully I got it all in one shot. I did, except for the beginning. But that's alright. That's probably gonna not show. And let me show you what I mean. So this will be our outside. We're going to center this. So what I mean by this not showing is that once we get our book cover glued on, this will actually be folded upwards like that. So this bottom edge will not show at all. This bottom edge. I don't know if I was in frame or not. There's on my camera screen, there are a bunch of words and letters on the bottom, so sometimes you can't quite see the whole bottom of the screen. So anyway, what I mean is that this won't show because it's going to be folded up like this on the inside of the book, so that won't show at all. And I'm going to snip this string just because it's just annoying me a little bit. All right, I'm going to try to, I don't necessarily need my cutting surface anymore, so I'll take that down. But I may just use this newspaper for, just in case I have glue everywhere. So once again, it's just 2 pieces of chipboard. I decided on 2 1/4 inches wide, and then I cut it the exact height of my book cover. And I'm using Fabra, what am I using? Fabra Tack. Any Fabra Fix, Fabra 3-in-1 by Beacon. Any of those will work very, very nicely. So I highly recommend that glue for that. I think you could use PVA glue too. All right, so just to make sure that these are nice and straight, make sure it's not wonky on the front of our cover, I have a gridded ruler, and I'm just kind of lining that up with pushing it just a little bit here. There, that looks really good. So if you cut your fabric straight, it shouldn't be a problem. Come over just a tiny bit more. All right. So now we have that ready to go. The next step is to glue these covers on. And mine are identical. I'm just going to make sure, like this has a little dent in the back, so I'm going to put that on the back cover. I could have used it on the front too, but I think we'll stick with the back on that. All right, so just put some glue and what I'm going to do is take advantage of this newspaper here. And I'm going to just smear it so that all those edges are covered with glue. Okay. Alright, and then we're going to lay this down. And I usually take or you could take a piece of chipboard or like a ruler like this. Slip it down in there, make sure you have a gap and make sure it's nice and even. Butt it up against your ruler so that it's even. And then I usually just, I know it's not totally glued down yet, but I usually just make sure that it's going to be a good distance. And it looks like it'll work out just fine. Okay, so I'm gonna, oops, put something under there. I'm gonna take that ruler again because I think I just goofed it up a little bit. Okay. Can butt up your ruler this way too to make sure you're all lined up. Just make sure it's nice and snug. And then do the same thing on the other side. I did get a little glue on my cover, but I'm gonna scrape that off before it sets too much here. It was fine until I started goofing around with it. So I did get a little glue on here, but I'm gonna use my fabric or my glue eraser and erase that off. That's no problem. Perfect. Love it. Love it. All right. We're gonna do the same thing over here. I'm gonna use my newspaper again. Make sure I don't have a gluey part on there. Slip that under there. Get some glue going here. Be generous with your glue. We want our covers to stay on. There we go. And then just spread that glue out to the very edge. Okay. All right, and on this side, so we're going to take this, make sure we have a nice gap. I also need to make sure that these all line up, so I think it was off just a tiny bit. All right. All right, we're going to need to let this set a little bit before we do too much, but I'm going to make sure it bends. All right. Okay, now we're going to wrap this upward, and then when it gets to this point, we're going to make sure that fabric goes down into the gap. Okay, so once again, we're going to take our glue, and if you need to make a little cut in there or something, that's fine too. So just going to glue the fabric. Make sure it's on the edge. Okay, I usually like to stick a little bit of glue down that gap as well. All right, and then fold it up. You can use a bone folder or a straight edge. And really get in that groove and make sure the fabric goes way down in there. That'll help the book to fold. Bone folder, or this, a lot of times I use my wooden ruler. All right, nice and tight. Okay, and then flip it over, and we'll do the same thing. Let's put a little glue in the gap. Okay, and then glue on the fabric. Oops, I maybe used a little too much. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, it's kind of a lot. All right. And then we're going to fold it up and do the same thing. First of all, get those gaps nice and pushed in. Alright, there we have a bigger, fatter book. Oh yes, I'm very excited about that. Very excited. And then we have a fun little texture on the spine here. Alright, now it's taking shape. It's going to be great. Woohoo! Woohoo! Alright, so I am going to do the same thing. I'm going to put this cover here in the exact same way. I'm going to prepare the spine pieces. What I think I want to do though, I'm going to do something a little different. So I'm not going to wrap the fabric around this way like I did here. What I'm going to actually do is I will have to come back and show you, I think. So I'm gonna wrap it on the inside. I'll show you. I've got a green piece done. I don't have the texture on it yet, but so instead of, okay, so this is how it's gonna look like this. Probably about that wide too. And instead of putting this down and then putting these here with our chipboard in between, what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to leave this one, because this is a raw edge, I'm going to leave this like this, and then I think I'm going to bring this around this way and glue it on the inside of there. The reason being is because I want to keep, see if I can show you how this is going to look. So it'll look like this on the back, okay, and then you'll have a little bit of a spine. And then it'll look like this on the front, where you have your spine fabric only on one side. So I am going to go ahead and finish up my other spine pieces with the decorations and cut my chipboard, and then I'll be back and we'll glue those other two spines, and I'll show you it's sort of like a half and half way I'm going to do that. So I'll show you that in just one second. Alright, my spine pieces are all done. I went ahead and decorated them up and put a wavy edge on one side. The other side it won't show, so we didn't need to worry about that. So I'll show you this all dry and finished. So super happy with that. I love it. Love the way it turned out. Alright, so the next thing, so we're going to start on the back cover. So here's the back cover. I don't want to put more fabric right here, so I am going to go ahead and glue this spine on the inside like this. So we're going to do that first, and then you'll see the whole process. And I am going to glue about 1 inch of this after measuring everything. I'm going to glue about 1 inch of fabric over the inside cover. So this glue will actually go on the decorative part. Okay, so I'm just being careful. It needs to come right to the edge of 1 inch in without going over. So I'm trying to be real careful with that. Might as well actually measure it on here. And I'm just going to measure it like that. See, we'll get a little glue going there and get it right up to the edge. Boop. My glue is falling over. Spread it out a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to flip this over this way. And it's about 1 inch, so make sure it's centered top to bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and measure this to make sure I'm not overlapping too much or making it crooked. So it is 1 inch. I'm going to scoot that over just a little bit. Okay. It should work. I think that is, yep, I think that is great. So smooth that down. And it's going to be a little trickier getting our gap and everything, but it's doable. Check it on the other side, make sure you don't have glue squishing out anywhere, and this looks pretty good. There's just a tiny bit right there. So I'm going to get my glue eraser. Sometimes having fingernails helps a little bit. All right. Okay, so that's so far so good. Smooth that down. Okay, so then let's glue our spine on. Of course, the spine has to be on the inside of the book, and so we're going to glue this right onto the fabric. And then I'm going to just wiggle it around and make sure I've got it in the right spot. Once again, we'll use our ruler as sort of a gap measuring tool. Just feel where the edge of your book is and lay that down. And I'm going to make sure it's going to be level with the edge of the book here. All right, and then, so I'm taking my ruler again, making sure I've got a gap there. Okay. And making sure I didn't move it. Which maybe I did, just a scooch, just a scooch. Okay, good. Now, this is going to get glued on like this, so that when you fold it over, this fabric will be on the outside. So that will decorate this edge of that inside flap. Okay, but before I do that, before I glue that down, I wanted to put a piece of paper over here. So I did cut it, so instead of gluing that fabric down and then, you know, butting up the paper against the edge, I just decided to put paper on the whole thing, and then when I put the fabric over it, it'll come right over the paper. So what I did was I cut this the right size, and just to save just a little bit on paper, I just cut it a little bit short on this edge because that'll be covered with the fabric. Also, I inked the edge with just a green ink, just to make it pop a little bit more. So I'm going to put glue all over the back of this, making sure you get right up to the edge without getting too many globs. Otherwise it's going to squish out. We don't want it to squish out. Okay. What I usually do then is just smooth it out at the edge, so in case you have any spots that are going to ooze out, just to make it nice and thin layer on the edge. Okay, so then I'm going to center it top to bottom, give myself a little bit of an edge on this side, so I've got a nice green border, and smooth it down. And it looks like I need to scooch it a little bit farther. There we go. Smooth that down. You can use a bone folder. I think I put my bone folder. I went somewhere today with some crafting supplies, and so I think I left my bone folder in a pouch that's probably across the room. So anyway, I'm just going to smooth that down. So now when we glue this like this, then it'll have a nice finished edge, because this is our raw edge of the cover that when we cut that spine off. So we want to make sure that's covered with something, and in this case we're just going to wrap the fabric around the cover. Okay, so this is much easier to see where the glue goes. Going to give that a nice generous bead. Although it's probably more than a bead, I'd say. And then once again I'm going to smooth that out all the way to the edge, so that edge gets nice and glued down. Okay, perfect. Going to bring some up a little bit farther on just this one section here. All right. Okay. Now, and we're going to center this top to bottom. Give ourselves a little gap. So I'll bring my trusty ruler over. Okay. Also make sure that our covers are level with each other. Okay, good. Smooth it down. Now I'm going to peek and just make sure I don't have any glue squishing out. It doesn't look like it. Alright, nice and smooth. We will check to make sure we don't have any oozing, and make sure that we can bend the cover easily. It's all good. Looks all good. Okay, then we're going to fold these up just like we did on the other spine, the main spine. So we're going to go ahead and put a little glue in the gaps, and then we'll glue down this. Well, we'll glue it down, but we're gluing it upwards. So do up, smooth it all the way to the edges, and then glue it right up. And then make sure your creases are nice and creased. I guess that's the only word I can think of. So this will be gluing fabric to fabric. It's the only difference, and that will be great. This is all going to be covered up anyway, this part here. Okay, we're going to flip this around and do the same thing on this end here. Squirt a little bit of glue in the gap, and then go ahead and put a nice generous amount of glue there. smooth it out to the edges. I think I got a little too much glue there. Alright, and then fold it up. Get our trusty ruler. Really press it into the gap. And then smooth everything down. See, I did get a little bit too much glue, but just wipe it up. All right. Perfect. So let me show you, and I will come back in part 2. We will cover up the inside. So I did the other side already to show you. So that will fold like that. This will fold in like this. And from the top it looks like that. There we go. Just like that. And we're going to put all kinds of goodies inside and make a lapbook. So now the magic happens. The magic's, you can kind of see how to finish up and get a good idea of what it's going to look like when you're done. So it's always a great thing when the cover's done. I'll decorate this, of course, but alright, that's it for part 1, and I will come back and we will do part 2 and get cracking on the inside. Alright, see you later, everybody. Bye.